we are live highlighting issues within the security sector of Trinidad and Tobago. And Brother Omar, who is more or less leading on within this highlight, will start with the discussions this morning.
Pleasant good morning to everyone. This is a special welcome to the media that's present. We are here, the Safe Movement, join as you would have seen via our invite. We have joined forces with the private security workers, not so much the companies, but the workers themselves, who over a long period of time has been suffering silently. Security workers in this country is one of the most important workers. It's one of the most, private security sector is one of the most important sectors in our country. And by far, it is one of the most disregarded sector in our country. So, and why I say that is because in recent times we would have seen a number of incidents that have occurred that has received both national and international attention. And you would have, of course, know the incident that took place at the compound there in Penwise, where security officers would have lost their lives. Also, without it being said, of course, those families and family members would have are going through a tremendous, troubling time right now. Very, very challenging for the family and so on, especially in the wake of who is compensating who, and how are these families going to fare? How are the children going to how are the children going to fare in their education, in their growing up, and all of that. We've seen where security officers, apart from losing their lives, would have been injured on the job. And these are very, very troubling times that we're in, and we understand that when you're injured in the job, if you're not paid compensation or your NIS contributions are not up to date, you are going to have a very difficult time in getting those compensatory packages and what have you and so on. And we have been getting reports from a number of private security workers that NIS contributions, even though it has been collected, has not been paid on behalf of these workers. We have pregnant women who are now seeking to have their maternity benefits, and they're having difficulty in getting those benefits and so on, all because those contributions were never paid. So what do we have here? We see here in Trinidad and Tobago right now, private security companies, it's a very compromised industry. There has been a lot of breaches, and by that said, we are seeing where the very thing that these officers have been employed to protect is being compromised. And what are those things? Security officers, private security companies are often hired to ensure the protection of life, property, and information. And by you treating workers the way you've been treating these security workers, and by the industry itself and the standards being set in the industry presently, you're compromising that very set thing they're being asked to protect. So if you're compromising life, property, and information, you've compromised an entire nation. Not an industry, not the company that they're working for, but the entire country, the entire nation you have jeopardized. And not only that, you're jeopardizing the lives of these workers as well. Their safety, their family lives, every single thing you are jeopardizing. And that is why we have joined forces with this sector to call for proper accountability, proper regulatory laws must be put in place to address these issues that is affecting the private security sector. And that's the reason why I have with me at the table here this morning a gentleman and a very prominent woman as well, and they're here to discuss. A lot of the issues that is affecting our security officers, our private security officers. So, without much, delay, I would like to pass the mic on to my brother on the left, Mr. Renison Jeffrey. He is a social activist and an advocate for workers' rights in Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, he will have a lot to say as regards to this matter.
Now, good morning to the public at large. Now, my name is Renison Jeffrey, and being on this workers' rights platform and seeing the things that is taking place around Trinidad and Tobago shocked me. Now, we come here this morning to talk specifically concerning what would have been taking place in the security industry. And in simple terms, that is madness and it is unhuman-like. Take, for example, the issue that I wanted to highlight generally is concerning the wage distribution to security officers. Now, we all know that after 8 hours is time and a half for a normal worker. However, that don't apply to security officers. And that, my friend, is wrong. Because all of us are human beings too. They are human beings. Some of them just come from real far to travel great distance as to reach on the job site and to do what they need to do to survive. And here it is that they are not getting paid overtime after 8 hours, which I find is wrong, and they deserve to be compensated in the proper way, because the Constitution don't cover them. They're not fair. They're not fair to nobody. And the next issue that I would like to put in the play, I know the rest of the panel here go elaborate on it a little more. The concept with female officers on the job site, how does the advantage on a timely basis? Some of them had to sleep with the owners of these establishments to keep their jobs, because they see them as a sheep that is singled out because they have no defense. So they're telling them, all right, this is what it is, because most of them are single mothers and they have to do the inevitable to survive, and to put the job and their survival, their very survival on the line. And most of them just fall prey to such a thing. And in closing, I would like to say this. Some of us in Trinidad and Tobago are benefiting from the struggles right about now. The struggles that how we living so nice, we are benefiting so much from it that we forget the fight. We forget what they do, what the forefathers have done in times past to place us here in this position. And here I say, some of us have willingly decided to put back the chains on the feet. Now is not a time for that. Now it's time to cast off these chains and to pick up the mantle yet again and to stand up and fight, because this thing going on all over Trinidad and Tobago, not security alone. So we calling on everybody, TNTech, WASA, PTSC, everybody that have a problem. Let us unite underneath one umbrella and say enough is enough. And that is my contribution here for this morning. I would like to invite you to Mr. Alan Sampson, just on my left, so he could expand on what you need to say concerning this.
A pleasant good morning. My name is Alan Sampson, employed within the security industry for a number of years. And there is a number of issues that is facing the security at present right now. Security are really crying out at this present time. There's a voice crying out in the wilderness. There are two issues that I need to address: national insurance and compensation. Right? Employees are being worked more than the hours that they are accustomed working. Some work 24 hours, 48 and 36 hours, and they are not being compensated in accordance how they are scheduled to work. And it is unfair right now that these people are working in excess of the 12 hours and not being paid. They are just being paid straight time. And also, I am looking at compensation. Some of the officers are dying in the execution of their duty and they are not being compensated. Right? Also, right, persons are just working and not being paid. Right? When they look for salary, the money that they work for is nothing. Is less than what they really work. And I'm calling on all security officers to come out on Sunday the 30th at the promenade in Sawa. Come out and let your voice be heard. We are no longer slaves. Right? They say Butler is struggling in his grave at this present time for workers. Who is struggling for security officers at this present time? Let us come out and send a message to the employers and them: no more. We shall take this oppression. I'll hand over to Ms. Kerry-Ann to continue the floor.
Yeah, so this morning, first of all, I want to say thank you to the persons on the panel here who's here to highlight the issue of security officers and what they are faced with in Trinidad and Tobago. Also, the person who is in charge of the media at the moment, and we're very appreciative of you, because we were expecting even more persons from the mainstream to be out to highlight this issue. I don't necessarily think that we are oriented in this country to value the work that we all do. And I'm saying we all because we all fit in various disciplines, but it doesn't mean that any job is less important, right? When we learn to appreciate the differences and what each other bring to the table, then we could say we have a respectful society. When we start looking at what we're doing as more important than what somebody else is doing, then we have to expect problems in the culture, right? Today in particular, we are highlighting one, that on Sunday the 30th of this month, October, we will be on the promenade in Sawa to highlight and give up security officers an opportunity to raise their voices, to highlight what they themselves have been faced with. Concerns have been raised with the First Wave movement, among other parties, unions, and so on, along the lines of what security officers are faced with. We get calls on a very, very regular basis, and it's quite troubling. Within the recent past, we saw the heist of some security officers who were more or less responsible for income or monies that were brought in by the Pennywise company. And we saw how this was not a movie, this really happened, where a number of officers would have lost their lives. We have seen where in the jewelry store in San Fernando, if I'm not mistaken, that young man who was by the door and was killed like a dog on the side of the pavement there by the door. And these people have families. Most of them are breadwinners. I'm being honest when I say a lot of these persons probably would not even take these jobs if they didn't feel like, you know what, I have to do something to feed my family. Because truth be told, a lot of them are being treated like dogs in these establishments. And we plan to raise the names of companies. We plan to name and shame companies. We plan to name and shame individuals who are in leadership roles within these organizations who think that because the workers are not necessarily rising up, that they can do what they want. We have persons in HR departments, and I would have done courses in HR. And HR would be particularly about caring for human resource. And we're seeing something totally different happening where these HR managers are just doing the bidding of their oppressive employees when they themselves are not even working for decent incomes, but anything for $5, right? They have sold their consciences for $5, claiming they themselves are just wanting to take care of their families. So their families are being fed on the blood, sweat and tears of other people, and we cannot support that. We had highlighted by Mr. Jeffrey where women, and I'm taking this very personal, are being sexually abused. The right infrastructure is not in place to accommodate even women, and we're not saying that women should have some 5-star anything as compared to men. However, we just saying even the men should have decent infrastructure, but we know women go through some cycles that are slightly different to men, and therefore it makes sense that there's a level of comfort, some degree of comfort, that these women are able to take care of themselves on the job. We have so many other issues, such as fines imposed by these companies. Fines that are ridiculous. If a worker leaves to go to the bathroom, if a worker nods off after working all these extended ridiculous hours with no proper compensation, no meal allowance raised earlier, no proper overtime, all right? Yet that same worker sorts and nods off on the job. You have companies wanting to charge them for that maybe 5 minutes that they nod off, charge them more than their whole income for the entire day, but yet they have to stay on the job and continue working out that day. So essentially working for nothing for a whole day because you're not off for 5 minutes. So on the 30th of October this month, on the promenade in Sawa, we want to call on the security officers in Trinidad and Tobago, their family members, their friends, and anybody else who considers themselves a patriotic citizen who is their neighbors and brothers' keeper, to come out on the promenade at 10 a.m. on Sunday, the 30th of October, which is this coming Sunday. Alright? So this morning we're not going to be very long, but we want to just bring the attention to what is happening within the security industry. And we have securities. If you think that this does not particularly affect you or does not impact on you, you have to think again, because we have securities based at your children's schools. We have securities based at your hospitals where you're going to get medical care. We have security based at your stores where you are coming to shop. So this is something that affects all of us, because if these securities are compromised, we are compromised. If a security doesn't feel incentivized and comfortable to do their job, then they cannot be as protective as we would like them to be, and therefore we are at risk. So we want this voice to go out and be echoed in Trinidad and Tobago, where people are talking in their households, in their kitchens, in their living rooms, they're having a drink somewhere. What is going on to treat the security officers in Trinidad and Tobago fairly? We want this to be a household conversation, and we will be continuing to take actions in the coming weeks. Even court matters going to be coming up against these companies. We're going to be showing up in front of companies. We're going to be protesting in front of organizations. We're going to be naming and shaming the powers that be within those organizations. We're going to be naming and shaming HR personnel. We're going to be embarrassing everybody who are unconscionable and think that they want to do master's bidding. Also, I want to say this morning that workers in Trinidad and Tobago, and this is not exclusive to security workers, although this particular press conference is about security workers, but workers in Trinidad and Tobago understand that without your labor, without you putting yourself out there for companies, they cannot be the companies that they think they are. They need labor. Labor is a very essential part of the economic cycle. And therefore, stop acting as you are slaves. And what this is how we make statements like, what I gonna do? What I gonna do? I had to take it because I have to feed my family. No. We need officers standing shoulder to shoulder. Say no. If it means that we sacrifice 2 days work, 3 days work, and do it out of 3 days work for the greater good in the long run, let's make the sacrifice. We're not showing up. We're not showing up. You have officers working at hospitals where people are coming in with communicable diseases, with you had COVID of recently and still going on. Highly contagious diseases and so on. And in many cases, we're hearing that the employer is not even paying the NIS, which is the basic the employer can do to safeguard them in the event of them getting sick. So this is why this is so serious, and we want to plead with our brothers and sisters nationally, as patriots, as people under the Almighty, as our brother's keeper, as our loving our neighbors. We learn that basic principle. We want that people start showing some concern within the sector. I want to encourage not just the security workers, but workers in Trinidad and Tobago. This is not who we are. We have Uriah Buzz Butler, we have Rienzi, we have so many others who fought in the line, George Weeks. We have so many others who fought in the line for workers' rights in Trinidad and Tobago that we're able to benefit from. And this is our leg of the relay to stand up for the labor movement and what we bring to the table, the working class of Trinidad and Tobago. Alright? So thank you very much for your time this morning, and we are asking you all to share these videos, like, share, let the Trinidad and Tobago know what is happening within the security sector. And as a reminder, come out on Sunday the 30th for 10 a.m. at the Promenade in Sawa, where we will continue to talk about these issues. We expect that security workers will come, tell us your boss name, tell us the owner of the business. Let's name and shame them. And apart from that, let's take up grievances, join the union, right? We will have application forms and so on. You're not in a union, join a union. Take your rights seriously as a worker in Trinidad and Tobago. If you are no longer with us, who is going to take care of your family? Who is going to take care of your children? These companies have to do better. Thank you.
Yeah. Question could be asked now: how safe are we? How safe are you? Now that you have heard some of the issues that some of our private security workers, or all of our private security workers, are experiencing on their job. All right. So when you go to the supermarket, when you go to the hospital, when you go to these different institutions and you see a security guard, and you tell yourself, well, okay, there is security, I am safe. There is security in my business, so my business is safe. Or in my company is safe. You are totally wrong. Because what have been happening in this industry over the past years has compromised the very thing that you have employed those security officers to protect. You have compromised their lives and you have compromised their families. And that should not continue to go on in Trinidad and Tobago. There has to be legislation, there has to be proper laws, and there has to be proper standards for this particular industry. All security companies should not be able to go to a businessman or a company and underbid another company. Should not be allowed to do that. I understand a very big company in Trinidad and Tobago. I call the name. Amalgamated. They got a contract for K9 units, paying $120 per hour. Attempted to contract a K9 company $15 an hour. $15 an hour. You see the madness? But we feel we're safe. Big companies like Amalgamated, Allied Security, Look at this booklet. They actually took the time, effort, and money to print this rubbish.
Which
All right,
is
security
illegal.
handbook, right, which has a number of items stated in here. If a worker were to commit heavy fines and loss of work and all sort of nonsense, already they're getting little or no money at all. $17.50 an hour. $17.50 an hour. What can you do with $17.50 an hour? You have your family, your children, all these things to take care of. The number of hours you're working for the day. All right, all these things. We are going to address these things come the 30th of October. That's this Sunday coming, 10 o'clock. I'm calling on all security personnel, all security workers, and those executives in those security companies who know you are committing a crime and you are committing wrong. Come out and let us speak about these issues. We have to regulate this industry. If we do not, Trinidad and Tobago is in a very, very bad place. Because like I said, the most important sector, if you want to put it that way, in Trinidad and Tobago is the security sector, because it protects life, information, and property. All right? And if it is, we don't have that protected, we lose everything. We lose our democracy, we lose our sovereignty, we lose our self-worth, our purposes, every single thing we lose. So let's be smart and let us get with the program. All security officers, and not just security officers as Carrier would have said, but there are other workers in the industry, in the companies and the businesses and so on, like store clerks and what have you and so on, going through similar issues, and their circumstances are similar. NIS are not being paid, they're overworked, they're paying little and nothing to do a job that they're asked to do. All these things. Or all of you workers who feel that you need to speak and need to say what are your issues, come out on the 30th at Sawa, the Crazy, the promenade in San Juan. That's opposite the Crazy. All right. Come out in your numbers on Sunday, 10 o'clock, and let us speak. Let our voices be heard once and for all. If you really need to protect the way you've been hired to protect, you need to come out and say. Thank you.
Thank you, listeners.
Just in thank you to the, gentle person who's here handling media.